How do you explain the greatest successes of our time? Why does one company or person rise to success above all others? Take Apple, which fundamentally transformed our relationship with technology. It wasn't the only company selling personal computers. They didn't even have the most powerful ones. How did they get to be the first trillion-dollar company? How about celebrities? How does somebody ascend to the level of Oprah? She doesn't even have a last name anymore. You can't say she was born with a silver spoon in her mouth. And how about political candidates? Why do they win or lose elections? It can't be because of campaign funding, because then a lot of elections would have gone very differently. Every single explanation we have for success, hard work, determination, innovation, better funding, better looking, can just as easily be said about the competition. Something else is clearly going on. Over the past 25 years that I've spent working with top global brands, I discovered that all breakout successes have one fundamental thing in common, and it lies deep beneath the surface. It's an ever-expanding, continuously growing brand in people's subconscious. At the heart of every brand decision is a hidden matrix of connections that dictate the instinctive choices that you make. Michael Platt, Wharton professor of neuroscience, and I call this the Brand Connectome. Turns out, every single thing you've ever seen, heard, or experienced about a brand gets glued to it without you even realizing it. Little by little, a vast ecosystem of accumulated memories forms. Images, symbols, smells, sounds, tastes, some going back as far as childhood. The brand you instinctively reach for is the one that has the most positive associations, the fewest negative ones, and continuously increases its physical share of your mind. You don't make your brand decisions. Your Brand Connectome does. And you have one of these in your brain for every brand you've ever heard of. Let me give you an example. How many people here prefer Apple over Samsung? Okay, lots of hands are up. You don't realize this, but the reason that you prefer Apple is that your Apple Brand Connectome is brimming with positive associations. Creative, cutting edge, user-friendly, Steve Jobs turtlenecks, the 15,000 movies you've seen about Steve Jobs' life, your grandma who you taught how to FaceTime with, that gratifying whoosh you hear when you send an email, and so much more. Does Apple have negative associations? Of course it does. It's expensive, the batteries run out, you constantly have to change your accessories. And if Apple kept accumulating negative associations, its Brand Connectome would look like this, and its growth would slow down and possibly even stop. But for now, Apple has an abundance of aspirational associations that overpower its negatives. And that's why you're on autopilot, clicking on that shiny new Apple item you just gotta have, as if you're under a magic spell. I am not talking about mind control here, or subliminal messages, or even those lofty advertising campaigns that are so overt, like feel empowered or live a fuller life. Those don't work. People don't control their brand choices. They just instinctively reach for the one that has the most positive associations and owns the most real estate in their brain. You know, early in my career, I had an epiphany. I was working at a top baby care company whose sales had slowed down a bit, and I noticed that when moms saw a newborn being taken care of by a dad, it created this flood of unspoken positive associations. Strong, tender, modern, I am ditching my husband for that guy. So I recommended to my boss that we put the first father in a baby care ad. But you have to remember, this was in prehistoric times. And so my boss thought I was crazy. At the end of that year, I received my performance review, which said the crime I was guilty of. Leslie is too passionate about putting fathers in advertising. Well, they finally did put the first father in a baby care ad, and guess what happened? It was the highest scoring commercial in the company's history. Sales took off. I had realized that you could change the trajectory of a company simply by adding an abundance of unspoken subconscious associations. And there was a direct connection between prospective customers' subconscious and marketplace growth. Today, years later, there's hard science to back up what I saw back then. Brain imaging studies show that as people learn new information about a brand, their memory structure expands. I call this brain branching. Like a tree planting its roots in people's subconscious, new branches form to hold the new associations. So how do you create success? How do you get people to switch brands? The moment at which your brand connectome spans more of the brain's terrain than the competition's connectomes, it becomes your dominant instinctive choice, the one you reach for every time without thinking. Bombarding people with superlative claims and deeper discounts doesn't work. To get disruptive growth out in the marketplace, the subconscious needs to grow first, and brand networks need a particular kind of nourishment. They need new positive associations. Think of it as food for thought. What do you think is inside Oprah's Brand Connectome? Top TV talk show host, a great magazine, authenticity, honesty, Weight Watchers, charitable gestures, free cars, and so much more. Other celebrities are famous for a single arena, music or movies or sports, but few of them are as big as Oprah. That's because Oprah keeps stretching out her brand network to touch more and more parts of people's lives, from the books we read to the foods we eat and everything in between. The more seeds you sow in the subconscious, the more the brand network stretches out to touch them. Now, our brains are so positively predisposed to Oprah, anything is possible. She can even run for president. No wonder so many companies and social causes struggle to make progress. They keep trying to convince people on a conscious level, when what they need to do is target the subconscious, where associations form in the first place. Do you think this applies to politics?
Yeah!
You bet it does. Can we talk about the 2016 presidential election?
Yeah!
Can we go there?
Yeah!
Okay. Senator Clinton and President Trump did not become the 2016 nominees because they were necessarily the best candidates. They became the nominees because they had the most massive brand connectomes. Think about it. He had The Apprentice and The Art of the Deal and his name in big gold letters on buildings and golf courses. And she had Secretary of State and First Lady, It Takes a Village, and so much more. They had a 30-year competitive advantage building up their brand connectomes into full-grown trees. The other candidates, the other 21, they were just starting out, mere saplings. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're wondering, does this mean that no new candidate can win an election? Of course they can. They absolutely can. But they're going to have to catch up. They're going to have to accelerate the accumulation of positive associations. They're going to need to prune the negative associations that are thrown their way by the other candidates by replacing negatives with positives. And they're going to have to reach out and connect with us on multiple touch points, Because one thing's for sure, on election day, the candidate that has the largest, most positive brand connectome is the one that's going to win. Everyone is capable of great success. Companies, people, candidates, causes. What do they all have in common? They're all brands. But people don't control their brand decisions. Their connectome does. And your subconscious is far more malleable than the conscious mind, which is rigid and skeptical and resistant to change. So if all you do is persuade and sell and convince and discount and coupon, it's going to take you a very long time to make success. That's why you've got to go deep. You've got to nurture those connections, get people's minds to branch out. Because if you want to have great success and tremendous growth out there in the marketplace, you first have to grow your brand in here. Thank you very much.